And joining us now in our book talk segment, a man who's written a book that, particularly this time of year, as we start a new year, a lot of people may be thinking of doing this, maybe changing a job or a career. It's called When to Jump. If the job you have isn't the life you want, we're joined today by Mike Lewis on the telephone. And Mike, good to talk with you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me and for having me on the show.
Yeah, good chance to read through the book. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a New Year time, but a lot of people, I'm sure, think about it this time of year, making changes in their life. And you did it yourself. You talk about it in the book. You had a pretty, successful corporate job, but you wanted to go and be a professional squash player. So that's kind of how, I guess, the impetus for the book, right? Your personal story.
Exactly. I grew up, spent some time actually in Tennessee, not too far from you guys, and then moved to California and discovered the sport of squash there. And what I found was that, I really fell in love with it. There was only a couple of courts within 100 miles or so. Squash is a niche sport, kind of like racquetball. And I remember our family hosted a professional player who told me of the Pro Squash Tour that went around the world and on mountains in Brazil and cities in Asia. And I just thought that I'm going to do that someday. And the trouble is when you have a dream, especially as you get older, you start working, no one's going to tell you when to go chase it. And so I started When to Jump actually 5 years ago this month as I Googled when to chase your dream. And if I found something, relevant to that answer, I probably wouldn't have started When to Jump. But the problem is what you see is a lot of stuff on social media and in pop culture it's great, but it kind of just looks at the end. The fairy tale endings, the happy feelings of starting a successful business and traveling to Bali, but no one really talks about how you get there. So in my office cubicle, I Googled that question, and when it didn't come up to an answer I was satisfied with, I started looking around. I found an article about a woman who left a bank to go start being a cyclist, ended up making the Olympic team. And when I got her on the phone, what she told me had nothing to do with when to jump and how to start being an Olympian. It was all around, the conversations with herself around potentially failing, the tough chats with their parents, insecurities about what her friends would think, all these things that make us human. And when I hung up, I sketched the cover page to a book, but really what is now WhenToJump.com, a global community, because I knew that nitty-gritty was what would help people make a jump. Not necessarily all the good, but the realities, the goods and the bads, the ups and the downs. And that's what you'll find in this book.
The biggest fear, like you said, is kind of you're brought up, graduate college, get a good job, and stay there. Or hopefully stay there, or at least in that career. And then when you don't want to leave that because, there goes your money, and what are you going to do at that point? So there's so much to overcome from other people telling you the negatives, right? That's the toughest part, I would think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. There's always going to be a reason not to jump, and the biggest problem is if you're not around people that support it. There's a great story in the book by a single mother named Laura McEwen. She talks about how important it is to look for support but not permission. And there's so many negative thoughts out there just in your own head that you could really get stuck if you don't say, okay, I'm going to find out what I needed to do to get to make this jump. I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to listen to that voice in my head. And I'm going to go to people I trust and ask for their support and earn their support. But I'm not going to ask for their permission, because if you just try to get permission from everyone, you know what? You'll never jump.
Never get it, yeah, right. Now, when you decided to actually make your personal jump, like I said, you had a pretty good job, I would imagine paid pretty well, but squash isn't exactly pro tennis where you can make a ton of money. Did you kind of budget yourself out and figure out, well, I have this much money in the bank, I can at least try this for 6 months or a year? How did you work it out?
Yeah, so this is where the book kind of framework comes into mind. We have 44 stories in the book, from single parents to millennials, baby boomers, immigrants to grad students and dropouts and furniture makers and garbage collectors, bartenders, yoga instructors, and they're so different, but yet they come together through a common set of themes. I call it the jump curve. One is listen to the voice in your head, and the next one is make a plan. The one after that is let yourself be lucky when it's time to jump. Put yourself in a position to get that luck. And then finally, don't look back. If we go to the second phase, make a plan, I needed to budget and set aside enough funds where I could say, hey, I can do this for X months. And it wasn't going to be forever, but I thought if I could give myself some runway to see it through, I think it was 3 months, I knew I would be okay. because I didn't want to just save for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden say, well, shoot, I just left my job. The money isn't really coming in, and now what do I do? I think that's a really big part of this whole concept is being really financially sound so that you're not getting in over your skis and you find yourself, straight out of luck. You've jumped, but you can't actually try your jump out because you have no funds to do it.
Now, had you played squash in college or before that, or were you totally going into it cold?
I had played in college. It was my first time playing organized team squash. I wasn't the best player, but I loved it. And then I played in Boston after work and at nights and was getting better, but truly kind of transformed during work. I remember I joined the Pro Tour part-time while working at Bain. So I was working at Bain Capital, the financial services firm, and I would take a day off and I'd go play a pro tournament and come back before work the next morning before anyone could notice.
Yeah, squash, I grew up in New York, and that was kind of a northeastern kind of Ivy League type of game. I remember New York had some courts you could play on it. It's a kind of a little bit of a slower version of racquetball, isn't it? Similar rules, but a little slower pace, or is it as fast as racquetball? I may be wrong.
It is. It's actually a faster pace than racquetball, and it's a slower ball.
Slower ball.
So you actually end up moving a lot more because you got to go get it, and that's what makes it faster.
Yeah. And again, you mentioned the 4 jump principles, and the book has, like you said, people you interview that tell their personal stories, and I guess that really helps people knowing that other people have done it before them. I mean, if you just tell your personal story, that's great, but you have several in there, 20 or 30, I guess, whatever it is, so, and in different
44.
fields, too. Yeah, 44, different fields, which I think people, like you said, if you want to be a furniture maker, maybe not the highest paying job, but if that's your passion, you should go for it. I guess that's what people want to hear, right?
Yeah, I think that everybody's different. And you know what? Every jump's different. This isn't a book just to say, go quit your job. It's actually a book to say, if you've got a passion, listen to it. And you should have control in how you listen to it. So, there are jumps that are lifestyle jumps, side jumps that you make maybe to pick up a new hobby or travel more. There's career jumps, across different careers. And then there's, actual internal jumps where you're not leaving a company, you're just moving to a different group within it. And I think with 44 stories, we truly cross every demographic just by the types of stories people share. So my first story in the book that features a karate school teacher turned screenwriter who actually ended up writing Sleepless in Seattle.
Right.
That might mean something totally different to you than it does to me. The next story is a woman who left being a nurse to become a doctor, was the oldest medical school student to go through the Mayo Clinic at, I believe, 50 years old. If there's a woman out there who's thinking about being a doctor in her, middle of her career, that might resonate much more than it does to me or you. So I think that's the beauty of the book, is there really is something for everyone that will resonate with you.
The name of the book is When to Jump If the Job You Have Isn't the Life You Want, and it's written by Mike Lewis, forward by Sheryl Sandberg. And Mike, give out that website once again. People get more information about you and the book.
Yep, so it's whentojump.com. You can buy the book there. If you have a local bookstore, independent one, go out and get it. I'd love for you to share the news with friends. This is our first week out. And then there's also a podcast. Every Tuesday, the When to Jump podcast airs, featuring local stories of listeners every week. And we're starting a learning program in February 1st. We're opening applications for a 20-person class of folks to kind of work on their jump with us, all online and as a side project to kind of help kickstart jumps. So you can go to the website, drop your name for the newsletter, and you'll be in the community.
Great. Mike, pleasure talking to you. Good luck with the book, and inspirational to, I'm sure, many of our listeners, hopefully all of our listeners, and hopefully we'll talk to you again. Thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Look forward to hearing you all and seeing you at whentojump.com. Thanks for having me.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.